By the time I came to my senses, the story was already nearing its end. The story's beloved protagonist had won the affection of everyone, including my father, my sister, and my fiancée. Meanwhile, I was lying in a hospital bed, barely breathing. Just as I was about to slip into the comatose ending written for me, someone suddenly appeared at my bedside. She was a girl full of fiery spirit, her eyes sharp and defiant. She looked down at me with a playful, almost arrogant air. "You didn't forget about me, did you?" she said. "Childhood friends never turn their backs on each other, Liam. I'm here to take you back and raise hell." I was dying on the day of Evan and my fiancée Chloe's engagement party. I got into a car crash with my ex-fiancée, to be precise. After all, just 3 days ago, Chloe had pulled Evan in front of me to say, "Liam, you can't force love. I really did try to convince myself to love you, but I just can't." Evan looked at me too, his eyes welling with tears. "Liam, I'm so sorry." He was handsome in a delicate, almost fragile way, and the moment he started talking, the tears he'd been holding back began to fall one by one. The Anderson family took me in for so many years, and I should be grateful. But Chloe and I are truly in love. I can't just hand her over to you. I watched them with a blank expression, thinking this wasn't something they should be crying to me about. The Andersons and the Prestons were joined by a business alliance. If they wanted to break the engagement, they should have gone to our parents. But then again, I knew my father and my sister would side with Evan without a second thought. As expected, when they brought it up that evening, my sister Sophie didn't even bat an eye before agreeing on the spot. "Evan is a son of the Anderson family too," Sophie said with a smile. "It's an Anderson-Preston alliance, so it doesn't matter which one of you marries their daughter. We don't even have to cancel the party. Evan can just take your place." And just like that, in the span of 2 days, my fiancé became Evan's. He was going to walk towards the girl I once loved on the very day I had so carefully chosen, wearing the tuxedo I had designed for myself. They even tried to force me to be there to watch, but they wouldn't get the chance. My vision was filled with red. I could only faintly hear a chaotic jumble of voices and the wail of an ambulance. This was for the best. I let out a weary breath, feeling an unexpected sense of release. In the hospital, my spirit floated high above, silently watching the medical staff bustling around my body on the bed below. The patient's external injuries aren't severe, but his will to live is extremely weak. "Have you been able to contact his family?" A nurse held my phone, scrolling to the first name on my emergency contacts list. Her eyes brightened. "Okay, I've got it. It's his sister's number." "Hello." The person on the other end didn't even let her finish, cutting in with a cold sneer. "Liam, where are you right now? It's Evan's engagement day. Did you have to throw a tantrum and make everyone miserable? Did you think not showing up would embarrass him?" Her voice was icy and mocking. "Chloe doesn't love you. Nothing you do will change that. I suggest you." Before she could finish, the nurse holding the phone snapped out of it and frantically ended the call. The doctor's expression was grim. "His vitals are fading." The emergency room descended back into chaos, but my spirit, hovering in the air, felt incredibly weary, heavy. I kept telling myself, "You saw this coming, didn't you? You're just the supporting character in this novel, meant to make Evan shine." The people in your life were written to love Evan. No matter what you did, they would only ever see him. You knew all of this, so why were you still hurting? An overwhelming wave of doubt and self-reproach washed over me. Just as I was about to be pulled into an endless darkness, a clear voice cut through the noise. "Liam." A nurse blocked her at the door, looking her up and down. "Are you his sister?" The girl froze for a second, then realization dawned and she exploded. "Hell no. I'm not his spineless, good-for-nothing sister. You tell him Chloe Carter is back, and if he's not dead yet, he better get up because I'm here to take him back and raise hell." Chloe Carter. I searched through the fog in my mind for a moment, and finally, the name clicked. But why was she back? The truth is, Sophie and I used to be very close, but then Evan arrived. He didn't have our last name back then. I can't quite remember what it was. I just remember a 16-year-old boy as frail as a reed in the wind. He huddled behind my father, cautiously sizing up Sophie and me. My father gave us an apologetic smile. "Sophie, Liam, this is Evan. He's the son of an old friend. His mother passed away from exhaustion last month, and there's no one to look after him. I thought I'd bring him here to live with us. What do you think?" Before I could say a word, Sophie cut in with a sneer. Cut the act, Mr. Preston. Everyone knows you were messing around with your first love long before Mom was even gone. She looked down at Evan, her gaze sharp and cold. You say he's the orphan of a friend, but he's really your love child with that other woman, isn't he? The color drained from Evan's face. My father, his secret laid bare, stammered for a moment before finding his voice. Sophie, how could you say that about your father? Sophie smirked. You know perfectly well if it's true. You married into this family, and you can't even be a competent gold digger. I honestly have no respect for you. With that, she shot a glance at the pale-faced boy and headed upstairs without a backward look. We didn't like Evan, but we couldn't get rid of him because I was still a minor and Sophie had only just started at the company. Our shares were still held in trust by our father. We didn't have the power to oppose him. The next morning at breakfast, my father asked for our opinion on giving Evan the Anderson surname. Sophie immediately slammed her fork down. Don't push it. Let your bastard son take your name. Preston, don't you dare tarnish our mother's name. Terrified by Sophie's fury, Evan started to tremble, tears streaming down his cheeks. Sophie just watched him coldly, without a shred of pity in her eyes. I was certain that back then, Sophie, just like me, genuinely despised the stranger named Evan. What I didn't know, however, was that Evan was the protagonist of a story where everyone was destined to adore him. No one would resent him forever, not even Sophie. I was also 16 that year, a grade ahead of Evan. While my father was busy pulling strings and paying a hefty donation to get Evan, whose grades weren't good enough, into my high school, I was preparing for my first state math Olympiad. From a young age, I knew I had a better intuition for numbers than most people. So using the Math Olympiad as a path to college was a plan I'd set since my freshman year. But I was only a sophomore, and the school's resources were mostly allocated to the seniors on the team. Even my own coach just wanted me to get some experience that year, not expecting me to land an early admission to an Ivy League school. My senior year was supposed to be when I really went for it. After all, that's how countless students before me had done it. But I wasn't willing to wait, because graduating from college a year early meant getting into the core of the family business a year sooner. So, once the competition date was set, I started burning the candle at both ends. I tried to keep up with my regular high school coursework during the day. Then after school, I'd head straight to my room to cram in as much competition training as I could. I was spinning like a top, but Evan was as free as a bird. He started trying to win Sophie over, bringing her a glass of warm milk at 10 o'clock every night like clockwork. At first, Sophie deliberately ignored him, refusing to answer no matter how long he knocked, but Evan was incredibly persistent. When Sophie wouldn't answer, he'd just keep knocking, sometimes for half an hour straight, a relentless, rhythmic tapping. It drove me crazy. One night, Sophie got so fed up that she flung the door open, snatched the glass from him, and downed the milk in one gulp. There, I drank it. Now can you please stop bothering me? Her words were harsh, but Evan just smiled, pleased with himself. I didn't realize then that giving in just once would lead to her breaking her own rules countless more times. Evan then belatedly noticed me standing in my own doorway. He turned and looked at me cautiously. Oh, Liam, I forgot about you. Do you want some milk? I didn't make any extra tonight, but I can bring you some tomorrow. I crossed my arms and said calmly, I don't need any milk. I came out to ask you to knock more quietly. I'm preparing for a very important exam, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't disturb me. Evan bit his lip, embarrassed, and whispered, Okay. Sophie stood nearby, glanced between us, her expression shifting slightly, but ultimately said nothing. As it turned out, Evan's okay was just an empty word. The next night, close to midnight, he was back upstairs. The only difference was that this time he was knocking on my door. I had just fallen asleep when the persistent tapping woke me up. I lay there with my eyes closed, trying to ignore it, but it didn't stop. I grabbed my phone to check the time, 6 minutes past midnight. If I didn't deal with him, I wouldn't get any sleep and my productivity tomorrow would be shot. I got out of bed and opened the door to find Evan standing there with a glass of milk. Liam, he said timidly, I brought you some milk. It'll help you sleep. I just stared at him. I would have been asleep already if he hadn't come to wake me up. I tried to explain as patiently as I could. I told you I don't need any milk. You don't have to bring it anymore. Besides, I just brushed my teeth. You should drink it. Evan's eyes immediately reddened. But I already warmed it up for you. Just have a little. He held it out to me, and I instinctively put up a hand to block it, but I accidentally knocked the glass, spilling hot milk all over his arm and turning the skin bright red. He cried out in pain, startling Sophie in the next room. "What are you doing now?" Though she frowned at Evan, her eyes were already scanning my room. She was looking for the first aid kit I always kept on my shelf. I stood there silently, watching Sophie get the burn cream and gently apply it to his arm. Evan thanked her through his tears. After that night, Evan still didn't stop his nightly milk deliveries. After a solid week of being woken up by him, I finally snapped. I told my father and Sophie that I was going to rent an apartment off campus. Sophie looked at me with a complicated expression. "Do you really have to go that far?" I nodded, my mind made up. I couldn't be sure if Evan was doing it on purpose, but this competition was too important to me. I couldn't afford any distractions. I quickly found a place, moved out, and threw myself completely into my preparations. That was without a doubt one of the happiest and most fulfilling times of my life. No Evan, no family drama, just a group of like-minded friends all working towards the same goal. That's when I met Chloe. She was in my grade, also on the math team, and our families moved in the same circles, so she naturally knew a bit about my situation at home. The Chloe back then told me, "Liam, you're smart and capable. What's there to worry about? Once these competition results are out, your father will see which son truly brings honor to the family." The young Chloe's eyes shone as she looked at me with a steady gaze. I could clearly feel that she saw me differently back then. Otherwise, I wouldn't have agreed without a moment's hesitation when our parents later proposed an engagement. Fortunately, in the end, all my hard work paid off. I became the only sophomore that year to make the state team and win a national award. Just as I was rushing to share the good news with Sophie, I discovered that while I'd been away, things at home had changed dramatically. The day I came home was one of those rare, perfect sunny days. A huge party was set up, sprawling from inside the house out onto the lawn. When Mr. Wilson, our butler, saw me, his face lit up and he immediately sent one of the staff inside to tell Sophie. A few moments later, Sophie came out. I didn't ask who the party was for. I just took off my backpack and handed her the acceptance letter. Sophie took it and glanced over it. For some reason, I felt her excitement wasn't as genuine as she made it seem. She asked, "Liam, does this mean you've got early admission to an Ivy League school?" I nodded. "Are you going to start this fall? Maybe you should wait a year, go after graduation. You're only a sophomore after all. There's still so much of high school you haven't experienced." "No, I'm going," I interrupted. "Sophie, graduating a year early means I can join you at the company a year sooner." Sophie was silent for a long time before forcing a smile. "Then go. You're so brilliant. I'm sure the board can't wait for you to graduate." She pushed the letter back into my hands. "Just one thing. When you go inside, don't let Evan see this. He didn't do well on his last exams, and today is a special day for him. Don't spoil his mood." I stopped in my tracks and looked at her in disbelief. "You let him take the Anderson name?" Sophie shrugged. "Yeah, it's just a name. If he wants it, let him have it. It'll stop people from looking down on him." I didn't say anything then, but I had a sinking feeling that things were spiraling in a direction I couldn't control. I never thought I'd get a chance to wake up again, because according to the script, the ultimate fate for the villainous side character who bullied the hero was to fade into nothingness, never to disturb the main character's happy ending. And yet, in that heavy darkness, I could always hear Lily's teasing voice, murmuring something. Once upon a time, there was a woman who wanted a tiny, lovely child more than anything. So she went to see a witch who granted her wish and gave her a single grain of barley to plant in a flower pot. Sophia, where did you find this story? So cliché. He's probably heard it a million times. How is reading this supposed to wake him up? These were the only fairy tales I could find. You could kill me right now, and I couldn't invent a new one. The woman called Sophia replied. Besides, old doesn't mean bad. See, Mr. Anderson is awake, isn't he? She was right. In the middle of their conversation, without any warning, I opened my eyes. Chloe clearly didn't believe her and turned around to check. Our eyes met. You. She choked, speechless for a long moment. Then she blinked, and I saw the glint of tears on her lashes. Liam Anderson, about time you woke up. Her voice was a little hoarse, just like my own throat, which felt raw and dry. I tried to move my lips, and Chloe snapped back to reality, quickly pouring me a glass of warm water. I didn't have the strength to hold it, so she held the glass to my lips. After a few sips, I finally looked up at her, unsure of what to say. Chloe put the glass down, her expression shifting back to its usual devil-may-care nonchalance. What are you staring at me for? She started counting on her fingers. It's only been, what, a few years? You haven't forgotten me already, have you? I was quiet for a moment, then let out a small laugh. Chloe, I could never forget you. In the story, to play up the deep connection between Chloe and Evan, they painted me and Chloe as childhood friends, but claimed I never truly understood her, that only Evan was her soulmate. But the truth is, I didn't even meet Chloe until I was 16. Outside of that fabricated story, Chloe was my real childhood best friend. Her family owned a major sportswear brand, and they lived in the same gated community as us. Chloe, to put it mildly, was not academically gifted. In fact, she had no academic talent whatsoever, so growing up no one in her class ever had to worry about having the worst grades, because Chloe was always there to anchor the curve. But life has a way of balancing things out. She was terrible in the classroom, but on the soccer field, her talent was breathtaking. Not just best player in school good, but good enough to go pro good. So at 13, she went for a tryout with a club in Spain and ended up staying in Europe for her career. Her parents began shifting their business operations overseas as well. For the first few years, she'd still come back to visit every now and then, but after she made the first team at 16, she was constantly busy fighting for a starting spot and traveling for games. Then she was transferred to a Premier League team for a record-breaking fee, became their star player, and never came back. Around the same time, I was getting involved in the family business and focusing on my competitions, so like so many childhood friends, we grew up and walked down two completely different paths, destined to drift apart. In the entire fabricated story, Chloe's name was never even mentioned. But to me, she was real, a living, breathing person I had known for more than a decade. I just never thought she would come back. After I'd had enough water, I leaned back against the pillows. Why are you back? Before Chloe could answer, the blonde woman beside her spoke up. Mr. Anderson, it's the off-season. Chloe heard you were getting engaged and flew back especially for it. We never expected to walk into something like this. I turned to look at her, and she quickly introduced herself. Hello, Mr. Anderson, my name is Sophia. I used to be a reporter for The Sun, but now I'm Chloe's personal assistant. Okay, that's enough, Chloe interrupted impatiently, physically nudging her out of my line of sight. Don't bother him. If you're that bored, go downstairs and buy a fruit basket or something. Sophia pouted but reluctantly left, closing the door behind her. Chloe pulled a chair up to my bed, studied me for a long moment, and then finally spoke. Liam, seriously? You let one illegitimate brother push you around like this? You need to get better and fast. The second you're on your feet, we're going back there to raise hell. I watched her in silence, a hint of skepticism in my eyes. After a long pause, I finally asked, Chloe, should I trust you? She raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? A few years go by and suddenly I'm not trustworthy? I pressed my lips together. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. It was that in this world, built specifically to adore Evan, I didn't believe anyone could unconditionally believe in me and help me. Take Chloe, for example. Before she knew Evan, she had said similar things to me, but the moment Evan showed up, all of that went out the window. She even had the nerve to blame me, saying I was the one who didn't understand her. Just then, Sophia returned with the fruit basket. Chloe rummaged through the fruit and pulled out a bright red apple. She peeled it perfectly in one long ribbon. Just as I thought she was about to hand it to me, she paused, cut off a small slice, and popped it into her own mouth. I stared at her, stunned. Chloe frowned and turned to Sophia. Why did you get these mealy apples? He's hated them since we were kids. Can you please go back and get the crisp ones? A sharp pang went through my chest, and suddenly I felt an overwhelming urge to cry, as if something had just broken open inside me. I decided to tell Chloe everything that had happened over the past few years. By the time I finished my story, a sliver of a crescent moon was visible outside the window. Sophia was asleep on the couch. I looked at Chloe, whose expression was now grim, and said slowly, I don't think my car crash was an accident. Her eyes sharpened instantly. I took another sip of water. The crash was on June 12th, but my car gets regular maintenance. The last time I had Mr. Wilson take it to the dealership was June 10th. 2 days later, my brakes failed. Chloe, I refuse to believe that's a coincidence. Chloe's brow furrowed. You think Mr. Wilson? I don't know. That's why I need to go back to the house to sound him out. And besides, I left something important there that I need to get back. At this, Chloe suddenly brightened. You need someone investigated, right? She hauled a sleepy Sophia up from the couch. Sophia's a pro. That tabloid she used to work for, The Sun, might be garbage for actual sports news, but when it comes to digging up dirt on players' private lives, they're the best in the business. If you need to find something out, she's your girl. Sophia, finally awake, retorted indignantly, It's not garbage. Our experts conduct very serious analysis. It's you players who are always so indecisive. Despite her protests, Sophia agreed to do the digging for me. She gave me a theatrical little courtesy. However, it would be my honor to be of service to such a handsome gentleman. Please await my good news. I didn't have any serious injuries, so after a few days of rest, the doctor cleared me for discharge. But Chloe insisted I take it easy. She handled all the discharge paperwork herself and had Sophia arrange for movers to pack up my things. I, who should have been the busiest, was left with nothing to do but wander aimlessly down the hospital corridor. Just then, I heard the ding of the elevator doors opening behind me. Before I could turn, I heard a familiar voice. Our Evan may look delicate, but he's perfectly healthy. Chloe, I'm entrusting this sweet, healthy boy to you. If you dare hurt him, I'll never forgive you. I turned in shock to see Sophie, a gentle smile on her face as she ruffled Evan's soft hair. Standing beside the fragile-looking Evan were my father and Chloe. My eyes fell on the medical forms in their hands, and, seeing the faint smiles on their faces, I quickly figured it out. They were here for Evan's prenatal health screening. They spotted me a moment later and froze. The others subtly shifted to stand in front of Evan. When did you wake up? Sophie demanded, her brow furrowed. Liam, why did you follow us here? Chloe said at the same time. We've decided to forgive you for not showing up to the engagement party, but you need to stop harassing me. It's never going to happen between us. I crossed my arms, giving them a cold look. Let me make one thing clear. I didn't follow you here. I was here for my own checkup because I haven't been feeling well. And Chloe, let me remind you of something. You're the one who went behind my back with Evan. Since I found out, this is the first time we've spoken. When exactly have I been harassing you in your imagination? Chloe was speechless for a moment before she managed to say, still so sharp-tongued. You haven't changed a bit since high school. Sophie tugged on her arm. Don't waste your breath on him. She turned to me. It's good that you're here. I know all about that project at the company. If you have any conscience at all, if you don't want to see Mom's life's work go down the drain, you'll back out of it immediately. I'll find someone new to take over. I froze for a second, then realized she was talking about the project I'd been leading before the crash. Our family business is in fashion design. 6 months ago, we landed a contract with Preston Corporation to design an entire line of athletic leisure. Before my accident, the project had been moving forward smoothly. Even with me out of commission for a few days, the team wouldn't have made any irreversible errors. The only issue was that Evan had been trying to find any excuse to get himself transferred onto my team. Who's the new person? Evan, I asked, looking straight at them. Sophie's expression tightened for a second before relaxing. What if it is? He's the future son-in-law of the Preston family. No one is better suited to take over this project. At the company, results are what matter, I replied. If you have so much faith in him, let him lead his own team. We can both submit our proposals to Miss Preston, and she can decide which one she prefers. That's right. My contact at Preston Corporation was Chloe's aunt, Eleanor, not Chloe herself. That was one of the reasons I was confident enough to make the proposal. Evan, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. His eyes were red-rimmed as he said softly, Liam, you're putting me in a difficult position. Miss Preston has known you your whole life. Of course she'd be biased towards you. Just as Chloe and Sophie were about to jump in to defend him, a clear voice cut in from behind me. Well, quite a party we're having here in the hospital. Chloe strolled down the hallway, holding a receipt. When she reached my side, she casually slung an arm over my shoulder and sized up the others. Do you people have any manners? This is a hospital, not your living room. How are other patients supposed to rest with you all chirping away like this? What are you trying to pull? Chloe's accusation was completely baseless, of course. This was the VIP floor, which was usually empty, and at the moment, I was the only patient. But Evan didn't catch that. He glanced at me and whispered in protest. But Liam was talking too. Chloe pretended to clean out her ear. Yeah, but some voices are different from others. Hearing Liam's voice makes me happy. Hearing yours just gives me a headache. Chloe wasn't exactly the most refined person. Her insults were blunt and brutal. Her words hit their mark, and Evan's eyes immediately filled with tears. Liam, who is she? Chloe pulled the sobbing Evan into her arms, her gaze fixed on my hand on his shoulder. I opened my mouth to speak, but Chloe cut me off. Isn't it obvious? I'm Liam's one and only childhood best friend. She raised an eyebrow, putting extra emphasis on the words one and only. I clearly saw Chloe's hand holding Evan tighten its grip. Evan, who had been sobbing, stopped mid-cry and looked up, surprised. I grew up with him, and I've never seen you before. If anyone's his childhood friend, it's me, Chloe said, her voice flat and unreadable. Chloe pulled out her phone and glanced at the time, her voice laced with impatience. Don't flatter yourself. You didn't even meet him until you were 16. How does that count as growing up together? Chloe's face turned pale with anger. Why is everyone here so stupid? I feel my IQ dropping just talking to you. Chloe said, turning to me. Liam, can we please go? I'm getting a rash from being around these morons. I was silent for a moment. Then I smiled and gave Chloe a firm nod. Outside the hospital, Chloe started ordering a ride on her phone. As she tapped at the screen, she asked, You're not mad about what I said back there, are you? I shook my head. Not at all. Chloe, you were brilliant. After all these years, you still haven't lost your touch. I was genuinely pleased. I'd been raised with a traditional elite education. It didn't exactly include lessons on how to trade insults. So whenever I found myself in situations like that, I'd instinctively try to turn it into a logical debate, which always left me feeling exhausted. But Chloe was different. She didn't bother with logic. She just opened her mouth and let fly. Listening to her argue was, in its own way, relaxing. Chloe opened the rideshare app, then glanced at me. I'm calling a car. Where to? You're not planning on going back to that house, are you? No, I'm not going back, I said, letting out a long breath. I had no intention of setting foot in a place where someone who wanted me dead might still be lurking. But I do need to get my things. Chloe, would you? I didn't have to finish. She understood immediately. What are you thinking? Of course I'm coming with you. I told you 16 bedtime stories to wake you up. What if I look away for 1 second, and they try to pull something again? As she said it, there was a fire in her defiant eyes, bright enough to be dizzying. I was no exception. In that moment, a thought struck me. All these years she'd been on the world's most passionate stages, chasing glory, surrounded by the roaring adoration of millions of fans. It had preserved in her a kind of fearless, youthful innocence. Compared to the composed, calculating young heirs I grew up with, she was completely different. When we arrived at the Anderson estate, Mr. Wilson, the butler, came out to greet us. He gave me a startled look. He looked away quickly, but that one glance was all I needed to confirm my suspicions about the crash. I gave Sophia a subtle look, and she immediately understood, striking up a conversation to distract Mr. Wilson. Chloe started directing the staff to pack my belongings. I went to my room alone, climbed onto a stool, and removed a few dusty hardcover books from the top shelf. Behind them, tucked away in the back, was a small metal box. I took the box, pried it open, and found a silver flash drive nestled inside. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and slipped the drive into my pocket. Just as I was putting the books back and pushing the stool away, I heard Chloe's clear voice drift in from the window. Hey Liam, get down here. I looked out the window and saw her standing on the manicured lawn, surrounded by clusters of deep red and pale purple hydrangeas. I went downstairs and out into the garden where Chloe was pointing excitedly at an apple tree. Is this it? The tree I sent you for your 16th birthday? I nodded. She went on. I remember I'd just been called up to the first team, but I was the youngest and the squad was full of international superstars. I never got any playing time, just warmed the bench for ages. But our coach was a good guy. He could see I was down, so he gave me a few days off to travel around Spain and clear my head. I went to Plaza de Colón and La Rambla, and the streets were packed. It was so lively. I found out later it was almost St. George's Day in Catalonia. Everyone gives flowers as gifts, so I sent you one too, the biggest one I could find. It's an apple tree, I corrected her. Who says apple trees don't have flowers? She shot back. Besides, that's not the point. Do you know what St. George's Day is in Catalonia? I shook my head. Honestly, she sighed. Never mind. Oh, right. I remember I sent a cat along with it. Is she still around? She looked at me, her eyes full of hopeful expectation. My throat suddenly felt tight. Chloe, the cat you gave me, she's gone. That was when I truly started to hate Evan. The moment Chloe sent her, I fell in love with the tiny creature. She was a silver tabby American Shorthair, only 4 months old. I set up a whole room for her inside, and even built a large patio for her in the garden. To make the yard safer for her to roam, I had the staff replace all the thorny rose bushes with hydrangeas. I even installed a few hidden security cameras around the property to keep an eye on her. But it didn't last. During the months I was away for the competition, Sophie had her killed. It was the first time in my life I had ever yelled at Sophie. My eyes burning, I demanded to know why. She just explained calmly. She left a deep scratch on Evan's hand. She deserved it. I know you don't like Evan, she added, giving me a sideways glance. But you didn't have to use an innocent animal to get to him. But I knew my cat hadn't scratched him. She was quiet and gentle. She never approached strangers, and I was meticulous about her care. Even while I was away, I had the housekeeper regularly bathe her and trim her claws. Evan claimed he was injured just a day after her claws had been trimmed. Even if she had scratched him, she couldn't have left a wound that deep or that sharp. If Sophie had just called me, I would have told her about the security cameras. All she had to do was check the footage, and she would have seen the truth. But she didn't even give me the chance. She just decided it was my fault. My suspicions were confirmed that very night. Evan came to my room in the middle of the night, using the excuse of bringing me some soup. He sat in the chair by my bed, watching me carefully. Liam, the cat is gone. Don't be too sad, and don't blame yourself. The important thing is that I'm okay. I looked at him coldly and said flatly, the cat didn't scratch you. He was silent for a moment, then said in that same soft voice, but Father and Sophie care about me very much. They certainly did, cared enough to believe him and dismiss me time and time again. That cat was so annoying. It was always making noise. But my cat was quiet. She barely ever made a sound except when I was playing with her. So he was implying that I was the one who was annoying. That's what I thought at first. But when I looked up, I met his gaze, and it was cautious, probing. He hit it quickly, but not before I saw it. I didn't think much of it then, but now telling Chloe the story, a strange thought occurred to me. It wasn't that Evan thought I was annoying. That look, it was like he was trying to figure out if I had seen something I shouldn't have while I was out in the garden with my cat. Something that could threaten him. So he used the cat's death as a warning. I felt the flash drive in my pocket. Things were starting to get interesting. Chloe listened to my story in silence. She reached a hand out toward me, then stopped, hesitating. Hey, are you crying? I lifted a hand to my face and realized my cheeks were wet. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect her. Chloe looked at me for a moment. Don't be sad. So, do you want to hold a cat right now? I didn't understand why, but seeing the excited look in her eyes, I nodded. She grinned. Well, what a coincidence. She pulled off her oversized jacket, revealing the black cotton t-shirt underneath. On the front was a custom print of an American Shorthair, one that looked almost identical to the one she'd given me. Here, you can hug me for a bit. Just stop crying, okay? Get lost, I said, laughing despite myself. But regardless, her stupid joke managed to lift my spirits. After we finished packing everything from the house, I belatedly realized I had nowhere to go. I checked my phone for a list of my other properties. Most of the apartments were being rented at a discount to key employees from my project team. It was a way of ensuring loyalty. The few houses I had were far out in the suburbs, too inconvenient to get to with all this luggage. As I was trying to figure out what to do, Chloe's lazy voice drifted over from beside me. Hey Liam, can you do me a favor? I turned to look at her. Chloe was sitting next to me, her head against the window, idly flipping through a book. It was one of my old high school math competition textbooks. She clearly wasn't reading it, just flipping the pages loudly. My family sold off most of our properties here after I moved abroad, so I'm just renting a place downtown this time, she said, gesturing with her hands. It's a huge penthouse, 3,000 square feet. The rent is insane, like $10,000 a month. You think you could help me out with it? But she was one of the highest paid soccer players in the world, earning over $500,000 a week. not to mention her parents' multinational corporation. There was no way she was short on cash. I immediately understood. She saw I was in a tough spot and was offering me a place to stay in her own awkward way. When I didn't answer, she said, "Too much." "Fine. I'll cover 90%. You cover 10. How's that?" I looked at her, my expression complex, my heart starting to beat a little faster. "Chloe, thank you," I said softly. She held up the textbook. "Then you can give me this in exchange. Fair trade. No one loses out." Chloe unlocked the door, and as soon as she flipped on the living room lights, I heard a soft meow. I felt something brush against my leg and looked down to see an American Shorthair circling my ankles, curiously studying the newcomer with wide, watery eyes. "Chloe," I said, my heart melting as I looked up at her. Chloe glanced at me. "Oh, her? She's the sister of the one I gave you. Their mother only had the two of them. I kept one and you got the other." I crouched down and gently stroked her glossy coat, silently apologizing for failing to protect her sister. "You can feed her if you want. I'll go make up your bed." That night in the unfamiliar room, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I got out of bed, planning to go out to the balcony for some air, but as I cracked open my door, I saw Chloe squatting in the dark by the cat bed in the corner, whispering something. She was so focused she didn't notice my door was open a crack. Her voice was slow and earnest. "Okay, it's a deal. Tomorrow morning, as soon as he comes out, you run right up to him and cheer him up, understand? But no meowing now, don't wake him up. If you do it, I'll make you that special cat food I used to make back in Manchester. It's a fair trade." A warmth spread through my chest, and a lump formed in my throat. I couldn't quite name the feeling, but I knew that the comfort I had so desperately needed at 16, the comfort that had been an ocean away, had finally crossed that distance and reached me now at 22. The next morning, for the first time in ages, I slept in past 10. After breakfast, I was about to get my laptop out to do some work when Chloe stopped me. "Liam, don't open your laptop." I frowned, looking at her questioningly. She seemed to realize she'd been too harsh and softened her tone. "Liam, you just got out of the hospital. You don't need to be throwing yourself into work for that family of yours." I sensed something was off. My eyes fell on her phone, which was lying face down on the couch. I walked over and picked it up. "Hey," but she was too late to stop me. The moment I picked it up, her iPhone, which she must have registered my face on, unlocked instantly. The screen lit up with a list of trending topics on social media. The top two hashtags were ARS fairytale romance and the story S cruel villain. Both were marked with a bright red viral tag. My expression remained neutral as I clicked on the first one and began to read. Apparently, some major influencer had leaked pages from Evan's teenage diary. It told the story of a boy who, since the age of 16, had secretly adored a brilliant, shining girl. He followed in her footsteps, trying to grow into someone worthy of her, always staying close even though he felt he was leagues beneath her. For her sake, he even gave up a spot at a top out-of-state university, choosing instead to attend a lesser college just to be near her. And in the end, the girl finally saw his sincere and devoted heart. They fell in love in college and were now about to be married. But into this perfect love story, a cruel villain had inserted himself. This person was his brother. This brother was not only jealous of his perfect romance, but had also relentlessly bullied him throughout high school. Worse still, he had deliberately skipped their engagement party just to embarrass them. I read the entire saccharine sweet post from beginning to end. I scrolled down to the comments and, sure enough, the top one. "Guys, I found the villain's social media account," followed by a tag to my personal profile. "Liam, stop reading," Chloe said firmly, taking the phone from my hand. She pulled me into a hug, stroking my hair. I took a deep breath. I didn't feel hurt or wronged because they couldn't pin something on me that I never did. I calmed myself down and made a call to check on the social media trends. Just as I thought, the posts had been artificially boosted. They started trending early yesterday and had been locked in the top two spots all morning. I knew instantly who was behind it, Chloe and Sophie. It had to be both of them. A perfect romantic love story would be a huge PR boost for Preston Corporation, enhancing their brand's public image. And with my reputation tarnished, I would be less of a threat to Sophie's position at our company. Sophia, who had come over to mooch some food, was pacing the room in anger. "I don't get it. How could they do that? They're your family. When there's money involved, family doesn't mean much," I said quietly. Chloe ran a hand through her messy hair in frustration. Sophia, do you have any experience with this kind of PR crisis? Some. Usually the best approach is to find hard evidence to refute the claims. But we're unprepared, and by the time we gather anything, the narrative will be set. I'd suggest we find a bigger story to bury this one. The homewrecker rumor is easy enough to deal with. We just have to prove you were the one originally engaged to Chloe, and public opinion will flip. But the bullying accusation is harder. It's easy to prove something happened, but almost impossible to prove it didn't. Even if you get old teachers and classmates to speak up for you, all he has to do is claim you bribed them, and people will believe him. Sophia looked at me, her eyes filled with concern. I gave a small, wry smile and placed the flash drive on the coffee table. This will take care of the relationship rumors. As for the bullying, Evan really must not have paid any attention in school. He left a gaping hole in his story that he didn't even notice. I let out a cold laugh. Just as the tide of rumors and hate was cresting, a video started going viral. It started when Chloe posted a security camera clip on her Instagram with the caption, "Such a soap opera," followed by 6 shocked face emojis for dramatic effect. She's an international sports superstar, with the World Cup in full swing. Soccer was on everyone's mind. As the only American player in a top-tier European league, she already had a massive following at home, not to mention her 200 million followers on Instagram. The video she posted went viral internationally, was quickly reposted by users back home, and shot to the top of the trending lists. The video was a compilation of clips from the security cameras in the garden, all from different angles, but all telling the same story. A delicate-looking boy meets a beautiful, vibrant girl by a quiet, flower-covered wall. At first the girl is polite but distant. "Hello, Evan." But the boy looks at her with adoration in his eyes. "Hi, Chloe. There's some math I don't understand. Could you help me with it?" The girl hesitates for a second, but eventually agrees. From that point on, they grow closer, taking walks together in the garden in the dappled summer light. The girl can be seen gently brushing a leaf from the boy's hair. But then the story takes a sharp turn. One afternoon, the girl, her eyes red from crying, corners the boy against a wall. "Did you go on a date with that girl from your class?" The boy looks down, shrinking back. "You're being too controlling. It's none of your business." "How is it none of my business?" she says, her eyes blazing. She grabs his chin and kisses him. After a long moment, she pulls away. "Evan, I get it now. It's you I love." Tears stream down the boy's face. "Don't do this. You're Liam's fiancée. We can't. Don't talk about him." "Liam, huh? So what if he made the state team a year early and got into an Ivy a year early? Why does he always have to be so cold and arrogant? I hate him." "Evan, it's you I love. It's you." The girl pulls the boy into an embrace. They are in love. In the clips that follow, they appear together more and more frequently, hugging, kissing, but their intimate moments always seem to revolve around someone else. "Chloe, I think Liam glared at me today. Do you think he knows something?" "Chloe, it's Liam's birthday today. Maybe we shouldn't be sneaking out." The two people in the video were unmistakably Chloe and Evan from the morning's viral posts. The internet exploded. This wasn't the sweet, innocent love story they had been sold. It was a trashy, sordid tale of a cheater and a homewrecker. Someone dug up Evan's background. I looked into it. This Evan kid was taken in by the Anderson family after his own family fell on hard times. They give him a home, and he repays them by seducing his own brother's fiancée. Shameless. A portion of the comments began to turn, flooding Evan's social media page. What a snake. Calling her by her first name like that. Is another man's fiancée really that special? But others pushed back. So Evan's a homewrecker. That doesn't change the fact that Liam is a bully. If Evan did this as revenge for being bullied, I'd say it's justified. But that afternoon, the official social media account of my high school alma mater posted a statement. It stated that Evan had enrolled 1 year after me. When I was a freshman at the main campus, he was still in middle school in another city. By the time he enrolled as a freshman, I had already transferred to the quieter North Campus for the Advanced Math Olympiad program, and the year after that, I left for college in Boston. In other words, for the entirety of Evan's high school career, we were never, not for a single day, on the same campus, which made the series of bullying incidents he described, tearing up his books, dumping water on him, all supposedly led by me, completely impossible. That's why I said Evan must not have paid any attention in school. He was so focused on Chloe that he didn't even bother to get his facts straight before making up lies about me. And with that, the narrative completely flipped. While the online drama was unfolding, I took a trip to an equestrian center in the suburbs. It was a private ranch belonging to Chloe's aunt, Eleanor Preston. After I called to discuss business, she had suggested we meet there. Chloe had insisted on tagging along, so I sent her off to go bother the horses. Eleanor led me to an indoor lounge and poured me a cup of tea. Eleanor was the youngest child of the Preston patriarch, only 32 years old. She wore her hair in a loose bun, her elegant features slightly obscured by the steam rising from her cup. She had a gentle demeanor that didn't at all fit the stereotype of the ruthless businesswoman she was known to be. I took a sip of tea and got straight to the point. "Miss Preston, I need this contract." Eleanor laughed. "Liam, you're certainly direct." She stood up and paced a few steps, and I rose with her. "So what do you have to convince me? As I understand it, your brother Evan is also making a bid. If his designs are comparable to yours, and he has the advantage of being the future son-in-law of the family, it would be difficult for me not to choose him." I fell silent, my gaze drifting out the large window to the sprawling green pasture. I could see Chloe leading a horse by the reins. She had just swung herself into the saddle when Sophia, who had followed us, rushed over to stop her. I couldn't hear what they said, but Chloe reluctantly dismounted. I let out a breath and smiled at Eleanor. "Miss Preston, I can assure you my proposal will be superior to Evan's. And on top of that, I can offer you 2 additional gifts." That piqued her interest. "And what would those be?" I took another sip of tea. "Since it's an athletic line, you'll need a brand ambassador. I can arrange an introduction between Preston Corporation and Chloe Carter." "That's a very compelling offer," I admit. "And the second gift?" I took out the silver flash drive and placed it on the table between us. "I know you're not content with just managing a few subsidiaries. This drive contains enough information to cause Chloe a great deal of trouble, and, if you play your cards right, it might be enough to knock her out of the running as heir apparent, allowing you to take her place." It was a bold and offensive thing to say, but Eleanor didn't flinch. Instead, she simply raised an eyebrow and gestured for me to plug the drive into the monitor on the table. I opened the video file. It began with the first meeting between Chloe and Evan. Eleanor chuckled. "I've seen this part. It's embarrassing for them, but it's not enough to do any real damage to Chloe." I shook my head and skipped to the end of the video file. "This, Miss Preston, is my real gift to you." It was the part Chloe hadn't posted online. The real reason Evan had my cat killed. The real secret he was trying to intimidate me into keeping. Eleanor's expression hardened. After my meeting with Eleanor, I went out to the stables. Chloe shot me a challenging look. "Liam, care for a race?" In our circle, most of us learned the so-called aristocratic sports. Equestrianism was one of them. Looking at the fire in her eyes, I felt a spark of my old competitive spirit and had one of the stable hands bring me a horse. Sophia drifted over, looking worried. "Chloe, please don't make my life difficult. If you fall and break a leg, your agent and your coach will have my head. Remember that keeper in the Bundesliga broke his leg just from skiing? Riding is way more dangerous than skiing. And the owner was just talking about aiming for the treble next season. After the World Cup, all the other team's stars will be exhausted. You'll be fresh. The whole club is counting on you." Sophia kept rambling, and I was the one who finally gave in. "Why don't you wait here?" I said to Chloe. "I'll just take a couple of laps and come right back." Chloe shot me a look of betrayal. I swung myself onto the horse, feeling the crisp wind whip past my ears. Back when I first learned to ride, I always asked the instructor for the most difficult, unbroken horse. Even now, I still crave that feeling of untamed freedom. A lot of the other kids learning with me laughed, saying I was overreaching. A younger Chloe, small and not one for big speeches, would just yell at anyone who made fun of me. "You don't pick the wild ones because you're too weak, but Liam is strong." And now Chloe was still on the sidelines, smiling as she watched me. As I rode past, she cupped her hands around her mouth and yelled, "Hey Liam, you're a really good rider." And I smiled back at her. On the drive back, I was feeling tired and ended up falling asleep on Chloe's shoulder. In a half-conscious haze, I heard her ask Sophia to turn up the heat and felt her drape a light blanket over my lap. Then I vaguely heard her whisper as if to herself, "Weak people love to pity those who are even weaker than them. It makes them feel strong. Your father loves him because he's the son of his first love." Your sister loves him because that soft-spoken boy is no threat to her inheritance. Chloe loves him because he'll always be beneath her, always looking up at her with worshipful eyes. But you're different, Liam. You're the one who tames the wild horses. You're the one they can't control, the one who makes them feel inadequate. The people who love you will never betray you, and you don't need to please the people who hate you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're amazing. Not long after the social media fiasco, I got a call from Sophie. Liam, were you behind those trending topics? She asked, her voice weary. I chuckled lightly. You're calling to ask me? Why don't you check for yourself? For the record, I didn't buy any trends. The users pushed it to the top, all on their own. Sophie was quiet for a moment. The narrative is getting out of control, she finally said. I tried to have the topics taken down, but now people are just accusing us of censorship. Liam, she said, her voice pleading now. The company's official accounts are being flooded. I'm out of options. Will you please help me? I didn't respond, so she said, Evan's wedding is at the beginning of next month. I've contacted several major media outlets to arrange a press conference. Can you come and help clear the air? I'm begging you. You wouldn't want to see Mom's legacy destroyed, would you? My eyes fell to the file Sophia had delivered 2 hours earlier, which was sitting on the coffee table. I let out a strange laugh. Sophie, are you sure you want me there? Of course, she insisted. All right then. In that case, make sure you wait for me. After hanging up, I looked through the file again. 2 hours earlier, Sophia had come by, her expression grim. Mr. Anderson, she had said, I found something on that matter you asked me to look into. She had laid out a series of photos and documents. I started with Mr. Wilson, like you said. It turns out he has a son in college who for whatever reason got into gambling and now owes a bookie several $100,000. That was the leverage. I kept digging, and just as you suspected, it was your sister who paid Mr. Wilson to skip your car's scheduled maintenance that day. As for the engine tampering, she hired someone else. This is the file on the person she hired. I stared at the papers spread across the coffee table, a tightness in my throat making it hard to speak. Liam, Chloe's voice brought me back to the present. What are you going to do? She was asking how I plan to handle it. Swallow it for the sake of the company's reputation or burn everything to the ground. I took a deep breath and said firmly, I'm calling the police. Chloe smiled and nudged me with her elbow. Good. That's the Liam I know, the Liam who doesn't take crap from anyone. Oh, by the way, Sophia cut in, a strange look on her face. While I was looking into this, I found someone else with a gambling problem. You'll never guess who. On the day of Chloe and Evan's wedding, I arrived as promised. I sat in the audience, calmly watching the happy couple exchange their vows and kiss. Finally, Sophie went up to the stage to give a speech as the groom's sister. After a long, sanctimonious speech warning Chloe to treat Evan well, she finally turned the topic to me. Today, in addition to wishing my dearest brother a happy marriage, I also want to take this opportunity to clarify some of the recent unfounded rumors that have been circulating online. Her eyes moved to me and a swarm of reporters followed her gaze, turning their cameras on me in a flurry of flashes. Chloe instinctively moved to shield me, but I pushed her arm aside and walked steadily towards the stage. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I said, tapping the microphone. It's true that many rumors have been circulating online recently. Sophie visibly relaxed. The internet has said that today's bride, Chloe Preston, was once my fiancée and that she and the groom got together behind my back. But that's a misunderstanding. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Sophie and I spoke at the exact same time. Hearing what I'd said, Sophie turned to me in disbelief. Liam, what are you talking about? I ignored her, addressing the cluster of reporters directly. In Evan's widely circulated diary, he mentioned that I skipped their engagement party to embarrass them. Now, allow me to reveal the real reason for my absence. The large screen behind us, which had been cycling through the couple's engagement photos, suddenly flickered and changed to display a hospital admission form. It was because on the day of the engagement party, I was in a car crash. Liam, what nonsense are you spouting? The color drained from Sophie's face and she lunged for my microphone. But she was too late. On the screen, a timeline of evidence began to play, showing how Sophie had bribed Mr. Wilson, how she had hired someone to tamper with my car's engine. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. A few seconds later, the sound of camera shutters grew into a frantic roar. Liam, have you lost your mind? Sophie's lips trembled, her face ashen. "If you keep this up, you'll destroy the company's reputation." I looked at her, my face a mask. "If you were so concerned about the company's reputation, why did you try to have me killed?" She was the one in the wrong, yet she was trying to use the company's honor to guilt-trip me. How absurd. The sound of determined footsteps echoed from the back of the hall. Sophie turned to see a group of uniformed police officers entering the room. I walked past her, and as I brushed by her shoulder, I said quietly, "You weren't a very good heir apparent, sister. Let me show you how it's done." Sophie was taken away for questioning that day. The shock was too much for my father. He collapsed on the spot. Shortly after I had my father taken to the hospital, I received a call from the board of directors. They were, of course, calling to reprimand me for my impulsive actions and for damaging the company's reputation. Unflustered, I had a car take me to the office. The moment I pushed open the conference room door, the tense atmosphere inside froze and all eyes turned to me. After a long silence, one of them was finally pushed forward to speak. "Liam, your actions were far too rash. You've landed Sophie in serious trouble. Even if we manage to get her out of this, the damage to the company's reputation is irreversible. Getting her out won't fix anything, so don't," I said coldly. The board members exchanged confused glances, unsure what to make of my statement. I walked to the head of the conference table and slowly took my seat. "As long as your dividends are secure, does it really matter who sits in this chair? Are you suggesting?" One of the shareholders began tentatively. I am the victim in this situation. Public sympathy is on my side. Punishing Sophie and compensating me is the resolution the public wants to see, not some half-baked attempt to whitewash what she did. Besides, I said, folding my hands on the table and looking at each of them in turn, I have always been more capable than Sophie. Make me your new CEO, and I will bring you returns far greater than you've ever seen before. That evening, I held a live-streamed press conference. During the stream, I spoke emotionally about my childhood with Sophie, tearfully wondering aloud how our once close relationship could have ended up like this. I glanced at the live chat scrolling by. My heart goes out to him. The infighting in these rich families is terrifying. He's so brilliant. No wonder his sister felt so threatened by him. I put on a brave smile, then spoke about our brand's founding principles, and ended by offering a sincere apology to the public for taking up their time and attention with our family drama. Finally, I announced that I would be taking over as CEO of the company and promised to deliver even better products and services to our customers. The chat exploded with support. Yes, we love a strong protagonist who overcomes adversity. He's so impressive, a National Math Olympiad winner. It's about time a capable son got to inherit the family business. After things at the company had settled down, my father summoned me back to the house. He sat on the sofa, looking as if he'd aged a decade overnight. He was a shadow of the imposing man I remembered, the man who had always dismissed me in favor of Evan. I went and sat beside him, waiting for him to speak first. His hands trembled as he reached out as if to touch my hair, but I leaned away. "Liam, I know you're still angry with me. Everything was my fault. I wronged your mother, but Evan is innocent." I just smiled at him, saying nothing. He sighed. "As for Sophie, I don't have the power to help her. Only you can save her now. I'm begging you, son." I gave him a brilliant smile. "All right, you want to get Sophie out? No problem. In a couple of days, we'll go talk to Evan and figure out a plan." At this, my father's lips began to tremble and tears streamed down his face. "Liam, I'm so sorry. And that foolish girl, Sophie, she wronged you too." 2 days passed quickly. I accompanied my father, who now walked with a cane, to the office. We used a back entrance so as not to be seen. Evan was now working in the design department. I asked around and learned he was in a meeting, so I took my father to the break room to wait. After we'd finished a cup of tea, we finally heard the soft click of Evan's dress shoes in the hallway. My father's tired eyes lit up, and he pulled me towards the door, but before we could open it, we heard Evan's voice from the other side. "Dad, what are you doing here? How did you get in?" My father froze, confused as to how Evan knew he was there. But before he could say anything, another older male voice answered from the hallway. "Evan, I'm out of money. The loan sharks are after me again. You have to help me, just one more time." "Out of money again? I just gave you $50,000. "Oh," Evan scoffed. "I don't have any more money for you. Go sell a kidney for all I care. Just stop coming to me." You're a son-in-law of the Preston family now. How can you not have money? I said I don't have it, and I mean it. You don't? Fine then. Let's go see that other father of yours. Let's tell him the truth about who you are, and see if he'll give me some money then. You, Evan, if I hadn't found out your mother had a rich first love, if I hadn't helped her convince him you were his son, do you think you'd be living this life? Without me, you'd be. I didn't hear the rest of what they said because my father's face had gone deathly pale, before he collapsed heavily to the floor. Dad, I cried out, rushing to his side and dialing 911. In such a short span of time, my father had been betrayed by both of his beloved children. He finally and inevitably had a stroke. After getting him admitted to the hospital, I went to the detention center to see Sophie. She looked haggard, her face pale and drawn, and her eyes were fixed on me. When did you find out it was me who arranged the crash? I sighed. The first time I saw you after I woke up, Sophie. I stood up and paced the room. When I was first admitted, the nurse called you. You hung up before she could even tell you what happened. After Chloe arrived, the hospital had no reason to contact you again. There was no way for you to know I had been in a coma. When we saw you at the hospital, Chloe asked why I was there. You asked when I had woken up. I looked at her from across the table. Your acting skills aren't as good as they used to be, Sophie. At least when we were kids, I really believed you loved me. Sophie gave a bitter laugh. Of course I loved you then. You were my only brother. But you, Liam, you're too brilliant. You have to be the best at everything, she said, clutching her head in her hands. Why did you have to compete with me? Why couldn't you just be a sweet, simple brother like Evan? I walked over to the table, took a blank sheet of paper from my bag, and laid it out in front of her. Sophie, I said, taking out a pen and slowly writing my name on the paper. I still remember, after Mom died, you were the one who held me and taught me how to write my name. Her eyes were unfocused as she took the pen and, as if in a trance, wrote her own name on the paper beside mine. Yes, Liam. How do we end up here? I capped the pen, folded the paper, and put it back in my bag. Sophie, I said coldly, since you decided to try and kill me, you should have prayed I never woke up. Sophie stared, confused by my sudden shift in tone. Then her eyes fell on the folded paper in my bag, and understanding dawned. Liam, you never sign a blank document. It was the first rule of business our tutors ever taught us, but in her moment of emotional weakness, Sophie had clearly forgotten that lesson. Perhaps she never imagined that even in a moment of supposed heartfelt confession, her cold-blooded little brother would still be scheming. Sophie looked like she was about to be sick with rage. I walked out without a backward glance. After drawing up the share transfer agreement for Sophie's signature, I went back to the hospital. The doctor told me my father's condition was very poor. Continuing treatment would be costly and would likely only prolong his suffering. I wiped a tear from my eye and said firmly, treat him. I've even brought these share transfer documents. I'll sell everything if I have to pay for his treatment. The doctor sighed. You're a good son, Mr. Anderson. I wondered if a story about my filial devotion would pop up online later, posted by a random passerby. But I was certain that my father, lying speechless in his bed, had seen the agreement in my bag with Sophie's signature clearly visible at the bottom. He was so enraged he started making a rattling sound in his throat. I just gently patted his hand, told him I'd be back to see him soon, and left. When I left the room, I found Chloe waiting for me on a bench in the hallway. She was holding a cat carrier, and the American Shorthair's fluffy head was peeking out. I heard her whispering to it. Okay, so if you call me your big sister, then you have to call him your big brother. Wait, no? That makes us siblings. Who wants to be his sister? I cleared my throat and said her name. Chloe jumped to her feet. Is it all done? I nodded. She fell into step beside me, making small talk. Liam, you're really something else. That was a perfectly executed plan. Then she added a little wistfully. It also makes me feel kind of useless. I said I came back to help you, but you did everything yourself. Even the stuff Sophia and I did. You could have just hired a PR firm and a private investigator. I stopped walking and looked at her seriously. Chloe, who said you were useless? You were more helpful than anyone. How? Well, you made me laugh. Chloe stared at me for 2 seconds, then muttered, jerk. But she didn't know I was serious, because in the original story, I was supposed to fade into darkness forever. But then Chloe came. She existed outside the script, unaffected by the protagonist's charm. She told me she'd never turn her back on me, and she meant it. She broke through the darkness of my self-doubt and let the light in, reminding me that there was still someone in the world who treasured me. Chloe walked a few steps with her head down, then suddenly perked up, turning to me with a sparkle in her eye. Liam, you said I was useful, right? So since I'm so useful, do you want me? What do you mean? Do I want you? You know exactly what I mean, she said through gritted teeth. At the end of the summer, I booked a direct flight to Europe. I was going to see my first professional soccer match. Before I boarded, I got a call from Eleanor Preston. Liam, things are very tense between Chloe and Evan. I just grunted in response. I wasn't surprised. A month ago, Eleanor had used the information I'd given her, that last part of the video, the part with Evan's biological father demanding money. She used it to set a trap for him, and sure enough, desperate to protect his secret, Evan had stolen a confidential bid proposal from Chloe's desk and sold it to a competitor to get the money to pay his father off. He was caught red-handed. The Preston Corporation shareholders began to question Chloe's judgment in choosing him as her fiancé. They began to question her fitness to lead the company. Eleanor seized the opportunity and replaced Chloe as the designated heir. Eleanor, her father has decided to transfer her to a branch office in another state next quarter. She's furious. She's been screaming at Evan, saying he's the one who dragged her down, that if she had just married you, none of this would have happened. And Evan is firing back that she's the one with the inferiority complex, that if she hadn't been so jealous of your success and felt overshadowed by you, she never would have given him a second look. Eleanor laughed. It's a real mess. They're tearing each other apart. I glanced at my watch. Eleanor, I said calmly, you don't need to update me on them anymore. Whatever happens to them, good or bad, has nothing to do with me. I'm going to do what I want to do now. The day of the match was bright and clear. The league season was in full swing, and today's match was the highly anticipated Crosstown Derby. For the first 20 minutes, the game was a tense back and forth with neither side managing to score. Then, in the 23rd minute, Chloe took a long shot from outside the box and broke the deadlock. Just before the end of the first half, Chloe received a long pass, dribbled past 3 defenders, and scored again, making it 2-0. In the second half, her team maintained their momentum. Both sides scored one more goal, and the game ended with a final score of 3-1. It was the first Crosstown Derby since the World Cup, and a 3-1 victory at home sent the nearly 80,000 fans in the stadium into a frenzy. They began to sing their team's anthem at the top of their lungs. The referee blew the final whistle. Nearly 100 minutes of grueling play hadn't dampened the victors' spirits. The home team players started their victory lap around the pitch, but Chloe broke away from them and ran straight towards my seat in the stands. I froze as she pulled off her jersey, revealing the white shirt she wore underneath. Written on it in bold black letters were the words, "Only Liam." A gasp went through the crowd. 80,000 pairs of eyes and a dozen broadcast cameras all focused on her. She didn't look shy or embarrassed at all. She looked proud. The fans around me were singing, their voices a chaotic mix of anthems and cheers. But for me, her voice cut through the noise, clear as a bell. She looked right at me and said, "Childhood friends never turn their backs on each other, and Chloe Carter will always love Liam Anderson."